my class. I always say that.
Okay, so we're talking about chapter 3
of Mindstorms. All right.
Give us one of your pro cons.
Oh, okay. So
start us off.
Well, my cons are just sort of like a rant, and they're kind of removed. But like, I do like the idea about like making it meaningful, and that like forcing yourself out of a relationship with the content makes it like harder to learn because it's dissociated. And also like something that someone in class was talking about like the low ceiling, how like, or that's what we put it on the board as, but like the idea, I don't think you were there in class.
No.
But the idea that like, in math, even if you want to try something harder, there's sort of like, oh, that's too hard for you. You'll learn that in a few years.
Right.
And like this little kid was like talking about like calculus and like, he was talking about the kid accessing aspects of calculus and stuff. So it's like makes really difficult math more accessible, which I think is cool.
Yeah, that was good.
And like I liked the sort of being personally relevant as a source of power. But some of his arguments about like that it teaches ego and hierarchy, all of those things, I was like in more of an abstract sort of theoretical way, wondering like, are those attributes we want to be teaching kids, about like especially about ego and about relating to machines as if they're human, which is essentially what the turtle is doing. And I don't know what you guys think about that, but like just like on a more like societal level, like what does that mean that like if you're having kids embody a machine in their heads to understand something, like what does that mean for like war and guns and like,
I think
Wow.
that's
like a new.
I hadn't really thought about that, and you have a good point.
Mind.
But the thing that makes me a little bit more comfortable with that is when they were talking about just making a square, like in order to make the turtle do that, you think about how you walk a square and you physically do it, and then that helps. So I mean, that kind of relation doesn't...
The movement part,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
I like that.
I'm fine with that. Yeah, that was
kind
interesting.
of like what my math land was getting at too. Like I was saying, like sports, so like how you move, and then what's the math behind how you move.
Yeah.
So like the turtle kind of sees that, but plus it also helps with basic programming knowledge. Like if a student does like to go into computer science type things, like just understanding.
Yeah, it's
that
really
connection.
early exposure too. What else? Oh, I thought it was cool when they were talking about how like even little kids, it actually teaches you geometry. Like you learn, I think they said you learn to understand angles better than most high school kids, just because you can physically see it. And I like that idea because I feel like that would help me a lot.
Right.
What?
No, and I also like the variable too, to go with
Yeah.
the angle, how you understand what exactly a variable is and how it represents something and how it can change.
How you can name it.
Exactly,
based on what
and the
it
naming
is.
was good. How it was
The
more than
variable
just
when
X.
it showed like 5 plus X equals 8, and it was like, this isn't meaningful, and I was like, exactly, that is not meaningful.
Right, who
Like,
cares?
what does that
Right.
mean?
Yeah, because like a variable is kind of like an abstract
Yeah.
concept, but if it gives it a name, it's
Well, and I
what
had
it
been
is.
doing that in Scratch too, naming my variables, like words. So
Right.
it made
Yeah.
more sense.
Like what they were, what they did.
Yeah.
I liked the whole like conversation between two kids about the thing, and like when I do Scratch, I'm like the second kid who seemed kind of ADD and was like, oh, it looks like birds, we should make birds, and then the other kid like kept him on focus and was like, no, we'll finish the flower and then we'll do the birds. Like what I've done a lot in Scratch is like I try and do something and then it doesn't work, but I make something that looks cool, and then I'm like, oh, I'll just do this over and over again and make it rainbow, and like that looks cool, but I don't like. I wonder if like doing Scratch in like pairs with somebody who's like at your level sort of would work, because like just for keeping on focus, like keeping to the task at hand.
Well,
I do that too, like just like because it looks cool, and you want to just
I feel like it's easier to work with other people. That day that you did the Euler problem, I learned so much from watching you do that, but we also like talked about it and solved it together.
We talked it through.
So I think that is more helpful.
Well, it helps like to have someone who's maybe more advanced in Scratch and someone who's not.
Yeah.
And that way they can work together. Like there's things that both can learn from
I
each
never would
other.
have found that mod thing.
and I've used that since then.
It's really helpful to do, like with angles and stuff.
And it's the kind of thing that like I could have like right-clicked and done help and figured it out, but like without a concrete like seeing how it can be used, it's like not as
But like going back to the thing that you were saying, how like you were like messing around with Scratch and like you didn't necessarily get what you wanted, but it was something cool. Like that, I think he also got with like debugging, where like it's like with Scratch and like logo or whatever. Like it's not necessarily you get something wrong, you've created something else,
and you're still learning from that.
And it's useful because like then you can use that as the next. I like that.
And that's like a lot of things that people criticized about in class, I think, last Monday, that they said that they didn't like about math was like black and white, right and wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Scratch kind of like has a gray area.
Yeah.
Like you mess up and you still create like a triangle or like a hexagon or like some other shape, and you're like, all right.
And then that comes in handy later.
Right.
Well, it's like that kid that was drawing the quarter circles and figured out he could use that for the flower petals and also for the birds.
Yeah, exactly.
I did like, and I also like the thinking about that, like the whole concept of movement and like, I don't know how to articulate this. Let me see if I can. I'm not sure. Hold on. Let me look and see if I can like find what I was looking for. You can say something else.
All my stuff got said.
All your stuff got said. Oh, well, just the kid who was getting really excited about the spiral and like that whole idea and like that it introduced concepts of infinity. I kind of thought that was cool.
Yeah.
The idea of like concepts that are like really hard for even like an adult to grasp. That like, but that like it's really compelling to see something go on forever and like keep changing and like I don't know. I could see like me who like I didn't like totally love math. I could totally see me being that kid who was like really excited about making a spiral.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
Right.
You know what I mean? Like.
I actually did the spiral for my Scratch project.
Oh yeah,
you did.
Nice.
I mean, it's not perfect, but
I actually do my Scratch project. I'm done.
Yeah.
Oh, the one thing I didn't like about this chapter, and maybe it's just because I went to traditional school, but they talked about how teachers will not answer questions. They'll be like, well, what do you think? Or how could this be done? Instead of, and I feel like sometimes you need a nudge in the right direction. So I think a teacher could provide that without being as hands-off as they seem to be from this chapter.
Right, right. I mean, there's one thing for allowing a student to figure it out on their own, or like to even allow another student to help them. That I think that's the best. I would personally like.
But I know that I would get really frustrated if no one could help me.
If you keep asking the teachers, just like, well, let's try this, let's do that. And you're just like, I want the answer.
Yeah, that's the whole like losing faith in your teacher thing, because like not only do you feel lied to on some level, but you start to wonder like, do they know the answer?